The Georgia shooter's backstory, Hunter pleads out, Ukraine unravels, and more. The Monica Perez Show starts now. And if you hate the commercials, you can subscribe on iTunes Premium for less than it cost me for one newspaper. You get a whole month of commercial-free content, including Saturday story time, where it's about an hour usually, maybe a little more, a little less. And I read a segment from a great book. And my first one, like a book that isn't already on Audible or anything, my first one is The Octopus, about the death of Danny Casolaro. We're wrapping that up. You can find the 11 episodes that are already out. There's going to be one more. There's a playlist on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Monica Perez. And you can listen to that entire thing at once. And the first episode was June 20th, 2024. So if you want to listen to it on iTunes, start there. And then we're going to start another book after that, same author, Jim Keith, about MK Ultra. So you can support the show by going commercial free or just sharing it. Actually, I would love that. I would rather have the reach than the bucks. So share the show to someone maybe who, used to listen to me, maybe used to listen to me in Georgia and doesn't even know that I am kind of back. So that is also why I am choosing to cover the shooting story out of Georgia, school shooting. I don't normally like to give these things oxygen. I feel like they happen because the powers that be want them to happen. They want to use them for their policy agenda, which is to disarm us. And I just don't like it. I never know the real story. It's very hard to find the real stories anymore. But in this case, I know a former teacher from that area because I lived in Georgia for a long time. And she, before even the name of the shooter was available, his parents' name, any of that, she'd been telling me the information that she was gathering from the community. So I felt like it was unique information and reliable information. And so I'm going to share what I know or what she has told me, as well as my own opinions on what's really going on. A lot of this stuff did come out, kind of verified what she had been telling me. Some of it might not be out, and I'm going to try to make it clear what I've just, I guess we would still call like rumor because of that. But so some of these things I think are hoaxes and some aren't. In this case, my friend knows people who knew some of the victims. There were 4 people dead, 2 teachers, 2 math teachers, and one of whom was I think an assistant football coach, and 2 kids, 14-year-olds, who one of them supposedly is autistic. And I don't know about the other one. Might have been that special ed was a target. But as far as the male adult victim, he was the math teacher and an assistant coach, and he was, according to my friend, very greatly loved. So she's checking out this guy, was part of the community. He did die. The kids, both the shooter and the victims, their social media presence has been completely scrubbed, according to her. So, there's no way to really get too much more information about them. It happened very quickly. So they were kind of on that, that kind of efficiency juxtaposed with this idea of government incompetence is very hard to reconcile. Anyway, so I'm going to say it's not a hoax. However, that doesn't mean that it wasn't, that it's not a false flag or provoked or whatever. So let's talk about the facts, and you can draw your own conclusions, and I'll tell you what I think too. So it happened yesterday morning at Appalachia High School. It's in Broward County near Wilder. The perpetrator was a 14-year-old whose name was Colt Gray, and he is said to have used an AR-style weapon, which is a Colt weapon. So that's a little nominative determinism for you there. We know there were 4 people died. There were, Barrow County. Sorry, Barrow County. Thank you, Maria. I didn't write it down because I thought I would remember it. Anyway, Winder, yes. I remember that. Thank you, JB, is saying pronounce Winder. I remember that from being on WSB radio, and you would be familiar with the local communities, and I recall that. So I'm counting at least 14 shots. There were 4 people who died, 9 wounded, one of whom said that he was shot twice. And I'm just wondering if anyone observed what kind of magazine. I think their most you can have is 30, unless you've got like something giant like a Tommy gun. This is interesting. So tuck it away. Supposedly the shooter laughed after shooting. So tuck that strange and horrific detail away. So here's the official story, that he was suspected of making online threats the previous year when he was 13. So he was suspected of making online threats. That's the story. The FBI allegedly visited his home, talked to him and to his father, unable to prove that he actually did it. He denied that he did it. They asked the father if he had guns. He said yes, but Colt does not have unsupervised access to them. Now, here's another thing. Do we know that this is the father's gun? I haven't seen that come up yet. So people are pointing to this detail like they should have taken the guns. I'm not sure that would have helped because I don't know if it was the father's gun. So the FBI left without doing anything, without following up, without confiscating weapons, and the community is outraged by that. However, someone sent me a Facebook post that says as follows. So I tried to click through to this was from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office investigations fact sheet that was dated May 21st, 2023. When you click through to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office, it doesn't come up with this. I don't have this document in front of me. I'm just reading this from the post that I got, which will put in the show notes at monicaperezshow.com. Okay, it says this report from the Jackson County Sheriff's Office states that on Sunday, the Sheriff's Office, this was in 2023, the Sheriff's Office received a tip from the FBI that Colin Gray, which is the name of the father, had possibly threatened to shoot up a middle school the next day, Monday. The information was received by the FBI from a user on a Discord chat group. And it says here that Discord has a mainly gaming focus. The report states that an investigator, along with a road deputy, responded to the suspect's listed address on Rice Creek Court in Jefferson, Georgia. They made contact with a man who stated the previous tenant of the home with the last name of Gray had been evicted approximately 3 months earlier. The investigator got a hit on a new possible address for Colin Gray on River Mist Circle, also in Jefferson. The investigator arrived at this new address and made contact with Colin Gray. They discovered that he has a 13-year-old son, Colt Gray. During the conversation, the investigator wrote, Colin stated he does not know what Discord is, stating that he works full-time and does not play video games. The investigator said Colin allowed him to speak with Colt. The investigator wrote, Colt stated he used to have a Discord account, but deleted it prior to moving from the previous address. Now, time out, maybe a little bit more about the parents at this point. The mother seems to have a rap sheet or have charges on meth possession or usage, methamphetamine. The father, I saw a Facebook post by her, I think, that said the father had a very abusive childhood. I believe that he himself was engaged in domestic abuse and child services or some kind of domestic authorities were involved. So you might wonder why the kid is living with the dad, but could because of the meth stuff on the mom. The investigator wrote in the report, Colt expressed concern that someone is accusing him of threatening to shoot up a school, stating that he would never say such a thing, even in a joking manner. As the conversation continued, Colin informed the investigator that he does have firearms in the house, but they are hunting rifles. The investigator wrote that Colin stated Colt is allowed to use them when supervised, but does not have unfettered access to them. The investigator wrote, Colt assured me he never made any threats to shoot up any school. The investigator stated he urged Colin to keep his firearms locked away and advised him to keep Colt out of school until this matter could be resolved. At that time, Colin said Colt's last day of school was Friday. As far as how the FBI received the tips, it stated that the FBI received a tip from an IP address in Palmdale, California. Then later, another tip came from City of Cockburn in Western Australia. And a third tip came from the Los Angeles area in California. So that seems, like somebody's bots or whatever. Somebody's coming from other places. Each tip had separate IP addresses. At this time, the exact location from where the tip came was unclear. The report stated that included in the tip was user information regarding the Discord account. The email associated with the account is blarvinker@gmail.com and was owned by Colt Gray, according to the FBI's open source query. The investigator stated that the platform used for the query was not listed in the FBI tip. Therefore, this information is unreliable. The phone number on the account returned to an individual out of LaGrange, Georgia, according to Alexis query. Attached to the FBI tip, the investigator said he located a list of IP addresses used for the Discord account. Now, I don't know if this investigator is actually of the FBI. There are two people. One's a deputy, one's an investigator. They are operating off an FBI tip, but I'm not convinced that this is actually an FBI agent. And why would he be with the deputy? Maybe, I don't know. The list indicated the account was created on April 2nd, 2023. And I'd be surprised if the FBI is the first pass on this, the first contact. I would think would be local. Okay, the list indicated the account was created on April 2nd, 2023, which would fall outside the time frame of when Colt indicated he deleted his account. Oh, yeah. So if they met with them at the end of May and they had moved 3 months before, end of February, and he had deleted the account before the end of February, how could he have created it in April? That's weird. I mean, but that's just what he stated, not what maybe actually happened. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office records indicate Colin Gray was evicted from Rice Creek in May of 2022. Oh, that's an inconsistency. Let's go back and look at that. Yeah, this said that the guy in Rice Creek said it was only 3 months earlier. All right, well, that's an inconsistency here. The IP addresses from previous days shows that the Discord account was used in either Fort Valley, Georgia or Statesboro, Georgia. The investigator noted another IP address shows the account was accessed possibly in Buffalo, New York. It was noted in the report that the Comcast account associated with the IP address has a Northern Virginia area code of 571. These people are, well, this guy was described to me as a redneck who collects guns. Like these people do not seem like jet setters. They're going to Buffalo. They're going to Virginia. It doesn't seem right to me. The tips had photo attachments, and the investigator said when he opened them, he observed that the user profile name was written in Russian. I've seen that a lot when people try to when Russian bots try to sign up for my website, there were just billions of them. Most of them get screened out, but not all. The translation of the Russian letters spells out the name Lanza, Lanza, referring to Adam Lanza. Well, I mean, maybe it's referring to Adam Lanza, maybe it isn't, but it says referring to Adam Lanza, who is the perpetrator of the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooter in Newtown, Connecticut. The description of the suspect in this case is described as white and 6'2" tall. Colt is well under 6 feet. So maybe this was about the dad. The investigator said he contacted Troup County Sheriff's Office and provided an investigator with the information regarding a possible suspect in LaGrange. Later, the investigator said he learned that contact was made with the person the address listed, who informed them the number no longer belongs to them. The investigator said he spoke with Colin and informed him of the inconsistent information found on the FBI tip. In the report, it states Colin stated blarvinker@gmail.com is not known to him or Colt, and that Colt does not know or speak Russian. He also stated that he does not know anyone in LaGrange. Colin also stated that he spoke with Colt about the matter last night. Colt stated maybe they followed up or had communicated with him, if he had talked about it last night, Colt stated that he stopped using Discord because too many people kept hacking his account and he was afraid someone would use his information for nefarious purposes. The investigator said he urged Colin to take necessary precautions to secure Colt's personal information, such as a social security number, and informed him he could not substantiate the tip he received from the FBI to take further action. Again, that doesn't sound like an FBI agent to me. The report ended stating, at this time, due to the inconsistent nature of the information received by the FBI, the allegation that Colt or Colin is the user behind the Discord account that made the threat cannot be substantiated. This case will be exceptionally cleared. Okay, so that's all I got on that. So it just seems like the official story, the official narrative last time I checked on it, wasn't totally consistent with that report. More than one student reported multiple shooters. I don't think that's been published at all. The story is Colt left the classroom. For a long time, he said he was going to the bathroom, or people thought he was going to the bathroom. When he tried to get back in the classroom, they have a pretty strict protocol about locking all the doors. So a kid went to open the door for him and saw that he had a gun and would not open the door. And then they heard shooting. Now, how the kid got back in, because they do talk about in numerous articles how this school locks up, how he got in, how he had this gun. The gun is 42 inches. The standard AR is 42 inches. I looked on the website of the high school. It looks like they had a locker decorating day. It looks like their lockers are the half lockers. So they're 36 inches. I mean, yeah, you could definitely, assume put it in diagonally. I'm going to say that you could, but nobody saw it. I don't know. I tried to look into what kind of camera surveillance they have there. I couldn't find that. Yeah, so I think the parents were separated. Okay, so the community is demanding that the parents be held responsible, which I said just last week is a big trend. And then the other thing is that they are demanding that he be tried as an adult, which he probably will be. But this is the whole Charles Manson thing. If Charles Manson's going to jail for doing something that he wasn't at the scene of because he had such control over other people, why did they also go to jail? And the same thing here. Either the parents were in control or the kid was in control. It's not the same as conspiring to commit a crime together. They're saying that the mens rea and actus reus are the two things that have to be present for a crime. So they're taking away the actus reus. They're separating mens rea and actus reus, saying that the parents, but that would be negligence and stuff. There are laws for that. Okay, so what do I think? I think anytime anyone has contact with the FBI, and if you look at the social media of the family, it's very wheels off, as we used to say in Texas, very wheels off. And you would easily think of making, if you were looking for a patsy, I could see these guys being the perfect example. And maybe they liked his name, because it sounds like he was being set up, or, maybe it was Russian hackers. Maybe that is what got the FBI alerted to it. I don't know. But to me, once you hear multiple shooters, something like this, a first crime being a gun murder is practically unheard of organically. You hear it all the time in these mass shooting events that have a lot of fishy details. But going back to think, there was that Harvard Law Review article about, do more guns mean more murder? And the answer was no. And that was one of the things they said. I think I just talked about this with somebody. Do waiting periods help? And the answer was no, because people want guns urgently, usually defensively. Anyway, and unless you are a criminal, it is unlikely that you're grabbing a gun to actually murder somebody with it. That's just, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I think that this kind of thing is a setup. In any case, whatever happened, it will be exploited for political purposes, obviously. So you've got this Georgia Georgia passed constitutional carry in 2022. That's, people don't like the anti-gun crowd do not like that. I don't think they have red flag laws. I haven't been able to find them, although I thought they were sweeping the country. Red flag laws being where if somebody, throws up a red flag, as Trump says, take the guns and due process later. So these are the kind of things that would make Georgia a target. It's also an absolutely battleground state. It's a purple state now. It's Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Georgia are considered the big battleground states as of today. I think Kamala was just there. She started her Dana Bash interview saying she'd been in Georgia 17 times. I think she was on like an abortion rights tour. Yikes. But so they're going to call for federal laws because they're going to say these people are crazy gun nuts and they can't be trusted making their own laws. And I would say there's another element. If you do involve the FBI, then what you're saying is they are taking resources, federal resources, and therefore they need to answer to federal standards. But I don't actually think they used federal resources. So also, this was unlike Athens, Georgia, where you get a lot of kind of really terrible stats coming out of Athens, Georgia about safety and stuff. This is a conservative, quiet community, from what I understand. A lot of people have guns, but a lot of that kind of where you have that heritage culture of things like guns, and I always say like preserving food and growing things, farmers, like if you have inherited a culture of even drug use, even smoking cannabis or tobacco, as American Indians do, you understand safety and actually have high expectations of responsibility and safety. So the community is outraged by this. It would be a good target, though, if you wanted to hurt the enemy of the state, which is this kind of rural thing. And we've been waiting for the Catholic false flag, which the FBI highlighted. I think it had intentions of proceeding with. I know somebody who thought he was being targeted for a setup like that. But because we haven't seen it, we're getting closer to the election. That was when it was supposed to happen. Maybe because we were all expecting it, they changed tack and we're doing something like this instead. Can't rule out doing both of it. There was a resource. It's a 2024 Georgia School Safety and Homeland Security Conference in June in Columbia. There was a big emphasis on preparedness and resources, saving the day. So I read an article about this event from yesterday. And it said, this was the article's like the heading says, I saw lockdown initiate before I even heard gunshots. That's the quote. And then the headline says, Appalachia high school teacher says programs in place had them prepared. So, of course, they always, always, always break their own arms, pat themselves on the back for how heroic the first responders were, the cops, even though a lot of people were injured and died. But the 3 resource officers got to the scene as quickly as they could, supposedly, and in 120 seconds, the kid was neutralized. But let's read on in the article where it explores some of those details. Here's a quote from the article. I actually saw lockdown initiate before I even heard gunshots, so I had time to prepare. Someone saw the threat even before he started to engage. So it's almost like we knew before anything truly even happened, before lives were taken. It's insane, the technology that we have access to. Yeah, it's insane how it can front run the actual event. It is insane. So whenever someone says something's like unbelievable, I'm like, interesting choice of words. Here's the crying Beulah. I guess this is the teacher continues to speak. Response was very fast from our SROs, the school resource officers, probably with a matter of, probably 120 seconds after gunfire. The SROs responded to the individual, made sure that he was put in custody. John Lott, I like his site, crimeresearch.org. He immediately where his organization put up an article that this is one place where the teachers are not allowed to arm themselves. I have mixed feelings about that being a general rule because the teachers are they are the state, are they not? And I'm not 100, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying that, yes, of course, like mass shootings are stopped when they are stopped, usually by armed citizens. So I'm not saying that's not a good idea. But anyway, yeah. So some of these rapid fire things. So this is a kid who has no criminal history, from what I understand. In 120 seconds, he kills 4 people, wounds 9, one of whom at least he shot more than once. I feel like, that's doesn't sound plausible to me. So the teacher said that Crayon Buell, that every teacher in the school has a small digital card that allows them to alert administrators and authorities during emergency situations. So, sick, SIC in writing means it's their error, not mine. I would not say every teacher and then them. He said they press a button 4 times to get the administration involved and 8 times to get law enforcement sent to the high school, alerting them that a physical threat is on campus. So I don't know who supposedly hit that or what, but I think that's what this guy is thinking. And that's the kind of thing that was at this resource center, I guess. Resource conference. Okay. Biden says a lot of things I'm not going to read. Students across the country are learning how to duck and cover instead of how to read and write. We cannot continue to accept this as normal. We all had that. I had that growing up because we were afraid of nuclear war. So I'm thinking childhood trauma, culture of childhood trauma is it is the norm. It is the norm now. All right. Well, that's that story. It was longer than I thought, but I wanted to read the specific thing about the report from the sheriff's office because as of my investigation, that was a little bit different from what we're hearing. Okay, so Trump. All right, I'm going to have a few more stories. Let's do a couple more stories. Trump taps Elon as efficiency czar. And I'm thinking, this guy runs 5 companies, CEO of 5 huge cutting edge companies, and he's going to be efficiency czar. And don't all of those companies get money from the government? And it's Trump. That's how Trump got his start, his father and himself too. So anyway, and I'm always Teal is some kind of expert on Social Security. Okay, if that's your job, but it isn't, right? Isn't he investing in companies and stuff? I don't know. At least Musk wasn't a philosophy major like Teal. He was, I think he had physics as undergrad and he definitely had economics and physics, I think. Let me just see. Physics and economics, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah. So the article says Musk's businesses include Tesla and SpaceX, which are regulated by several federal agencies, potentially leading to conflicts of interest if he's involved in the Commission on Government Spending. His social media platform X is regulated by the FTC, and his brain implant startup Neuralink is regulated by the FDA. Trump also defended his own plans to impose broad tariffs. This is interesting to me, on imports, which some economists say will raise consumer prices. He's called for 10 to 20%, even higher, when dealing with China to boost domestic manufacturing, saying smart tariffs will not create inflation. They will combat inflation. A combination of fair trade, tax cuts, regulatory cuts, and energy abundance will allow us to produce more goods better and cheaper right here in the USA. A lot of that stuff involves actually spending money, making policies that accommodate this or that. I would say go full bore libertarian on that. If you cut income tax and corporate taxes and eliminate subsidies to higher education, that would solve the immigration problem, along with a lot of other stuff, any kind of labor problem, because the black market for labor would have no advantage. The reason illegal immigrants come over, they work illegally for half the price of what Americans work for. Yes, I actually think that their wages are, I believe it's $15, which is, almost no place has a minimum wage higher than that. So it's not the minimum wage that makes them cheaper. It's income taxes, which they are probably not paying, so you don't have to pay them. But Uh, you would get Americans are so pushed to go to college. You can see it because kids are hardly getting into college now. I mean, there's just too much competition for spots at college. So the kids are getting overeducated. They don't want to go. They're not learning how to be electricians, which would be great for a lot of them. It's an intellectual job, but not necessarily for someone who's not sitting around being book smart or whatever. And they're getting over indebted, which is highly inflationary in a debt-based currency. So eliminate the school loans, the school grants, any kind of subsidies in that regard. And if you eliminate corporate taxes, the companies will pay to educate their workers because it's worth it since they don't have to pay corporate taxes on the bottom line. They would flood here. And when I was growing up, one of my older sisters, became a pharmaceutical chemist starting out as a secretary at a pharmaceutical company. And they paid for it. She had to keep working there for a while, but she's one of the best off in my whole family. She had a pension. It was great. Also, labor costs generally of skilled and unskilled workers would be lower because back in the day, before there was income tax, they did use tariffs. And I think this was something that Kali Fontanilla told me. She was such a wealth of information and such a pleasant person. I don't know if you've heard this. I posted her interview on my feed. It's in all the live streams. It's on all the video platforms. And I'm going to play a clip that I referred to, but I hadn't actually played in my interview with her to lighten up the mood at the end of this show. That's going to be my closing clip. But she was saying they used to use tariffs. I think my grandfather said they used to use sin tax, tobacco and alcohol, to run the federal government. And if you limit the money that the federal government gets, then the states will take on their own policies that are not federal purview anyway. It would de facto restore the 9th and 10th Amendment. That's why I don't like plea bargains. Don't accommodate an overburdened system. Don't accommodate fat and flab. Get rid of the resources that pay for it, and you'll be amazed how efficient things get. So, yeah, that's my little my economics knee jerk to some of these policy ideas. And the beauty of all that stuff is it doesn't take anything to execute. So it's just freedom, which is almost all. I always ask, what can you eliminate? What government policy can you eliminate to solve this problem? And there are a few: income tax, corporate taxes, subsidies to higher education. That would be great. Hunter Biden cops a plea deal. Oh, shoot. I'll tell you this one real quick. We'll do comments, and then I'll tell you just this like a one-liner on Ukraine unraveling. But I really wanted to talk about election interference, all the accusations flying towards Russia and China. I don't believe any of them. How about that? There you go. We are one of the selected people will become president, and it will serve interests which maybe China, maybe Israel, maybe the powers that be, maybe the defense industry, because that is what I think is happening in Ukraine. Is they're popping off on Russia, they're escalating it. And after I talked about this with you guys, there was several articles, front page of the Wall Street Journal. We need to send Ukraine more fighter jets. And I'm like, really? Did the Rand Corporation actually write that article for you? So that's a big answer to what's going on. But yeah, I don't think that anyone is going to be serving Russia's interests. But, maybe Trump will get us out of the whole Ukraine thing, which would be good for Russia. I would vote for that. I don't know if I can bring myself to vote for someone in a party, but I might. Okay. So Hunter, he offered a plea deal to resolve his federal tax case where he's being accused of not paying $1.4 million from, I think it was 2016 through 2019. So is that 4 years, 1.4? That's going to be at least $3 million in income. So he's making probably $1 million a year during a time where his defense is that he was absolutely incapacitated with drug abuse. And I'm trying to think, like, where's that money coming from? So maybe he was making some insane returns during a time of very low interest rates. Maybe these are capital gains taxes. I guess I could have looked into that, although I think it might have said income. Anyway, jury selection for the Los Angeles trial was set to begin Thursday. However, Biden's defense team said it planned to pursue an Alford plea, Alford, Alford, in which he would maintain his innocence, but concede that the evidence was sufficient to convict. So a preponderance of the evidence, because I assume it's not criminal, or is it criminal? Criminal would be like a much higher threshold. So you have to have beyond a reasonable doubt. With civil, it just has to be most likely. And it would be kind of hard to believe that he would think it would be criminal. Yeah. 9 charges include 3 felonies and 6 misdemeanors that alleged he failed to file returns or pay taxes during a drug-fueled. But yeah, so it's criminal. It's not just to get the money back. Yeah. But my thought with all this was, this guy is so knee deep in all of that stuff. There's so many fraudsters he's been in bed with. People have gone to jail. And then there's that weird text that's in the congressional record that says, I'm here with my dad. And he's saying, I'm going to stand over your body saying, I told you so. If you don't send me $10 million for the influence I gave you. I mean, crazy stuff like that. I mean, Hunter might be a liability, in which case I wouldn't be surprised if the stress of all this gives him a drug relapse, and who knows? Who knows what happens after that? I don't wish ill on anybody, but sometimes these stories kind of, make you wonder what's next. Anyway, so let's do some comments and then I'll do Ukraine. All righty, my people. That was the other one. James says Iran is at it again. Yes. That was the other one. Is Iran is trying to influence the election. I don't know who they think is on their side. Didn't Kamala? I mean, because didn't Trump kill Soleimani, who was a hero? JC says, saw on Twitter earlier, none of the neighbors saw him before until just before the shooting. Oh, yeah, never went on the bus. Yeah, I saw that. Yes, Michael says, I'm glad you're tackling this latest blur of unknowable information. Yeah, it used to be before February 14th, 2018. I could piece the stuff together, but they've completely shut down the interview after that. Was the Parkland one. The post-event press conference was, of course, the usual multi-congratulatory claptrap of multiple federal and local agencies. It's absolutely outrageous because while reading that thing about the visit to the house, like it makes me think, like, it doesn't seem like that. It does seem like they would clear someone like that. It's a bunch of Russian stuff. The kid obviously was plausible to them. It wasn't about the kid. They told him to stay home. Like, I don't think you want every unsubstantiable allegation to result in arrest, because not only because that's impractical and illiberal in the classical sense, but it's like swatting, or doxing. It's weaponizing just false allegations. And I remember with the Clarence Thomas thing, my father was like, they cannot prevent him from being Supreme Court because of this unproven allegation, because that would just create an incentive for allegations that are completely just made up. You just have to have some standards. And I agree with that. I missed this one. Michael continues. Oh, hi, Michael. The sheriff's hate will not win talking points and other statements are worth addressing. I'll have to check that out. What's the hate? Oh, because it looked like a Hispanic kid and maybe a black kid were the victims. I was focused on the special ed thing because, I'm just have heightened awareness of that. Maybe that's the hate. Kat said already scheduled prior to this event was a gun ownership safety conference, how to own guns responsibly. Where, Kat? Brucey wants to know, hi, Brucey, how many will happen before November? I mean, I'm worried about the Catholic one. Yes, Nicholas says he believes that the Newton event, the 2012 event, was created to be an intentional cultural war issue, hoaxers versus MSM consumers. That's true. I used to have a listener I called Truth Dar Boy because he was a young guy. I think he was still in high school in Atlanta. And he was so good at discerning things. And he did a run of how many times the word hoax appeared on the internet prior to 2012 and after. And it was absolutely indistinguishable from any other word prior and after. It was a greatly used word. And he agreed that the hoax thing was intentionally released into the side stream or whatever, the culture, for, I think, divisive purposes. That's very astute, Nicholas, because I had never heard anybody else say that. And actually point out the moment. JB wants to know, does anyone know the shooter's movements? Did they take place in a single area? I was looking for any kind of camera work, any kind of like, description of that, but no. I'd like to know how he got in, because they do say, I read somewhere that school has a very strict protocol where the resource officers, when after the bell rings, go around and check the locks, check that everything's locked. Yeah, I mean, arming teachers, maybe don't ask, don't tell would be even better. Dan says if teachers are armed, it'd have to be voluntary. They'd have to undergo psych evaluation, background check, weapon training, just like other armed security. Yeah, I don't know. It's just more, I don't know, and I can't help but think, I think Thomas Jefferson said that at his university, he did not want guns. I believe that's true. Could be false, but I think that's true. And it always made me kind of scratch my head and be like, okay, maybe I should not opine on what I really don't understand. It's not my culture. And people say the same thing about like army bases. You don't want them all walking around with their guns. Brucey thinks Trump is going to Operation Warp Speed everyone to get a Neuralink. Boy, well, when people's eyes and ears start going because we're all on screens, then maybe people will. Brucey's an electrician. Oh, good for you. That's fantastic. I would have liked that. I actually think I'd like to be a plumber, but I don't want to get dirty. So I don't know how I would do that. I just like plumbing. I don't know why. I don't know. I think because I like the whole gravity of it. Like it has to be like at just such a slope that, whatever the liquid, it's gross. I'm not going to tell you, but I had to really understand plumbing in this house. And the thing is, you can, because we got this house and it's old. It was built in 1930, and you go under the house and you see all the plumbing, which I wouldn't have bought it if I couldn't. And you can see what's old. You can see how it works. It's fascinating. Whereas the electricity is not as easy to grok. Oh, JB, I wonder if you are referring to something I've noticed a long time ago. And this is why I marched against Obamacare 3 times with my Atlanta friends. Even my husband did that. The elusive Mr. Perez was spotted at an anti-Obamacare rally on the lawn. I wonder, though, if the country has reached the tipping point of more government workers who would never vote to support Xing their jobs. Yeah. Or not giving them raises. Yeah. So once you have the more than half the voters being net tax recipients instead of payers, you got a problem. So, Oh, the Watergate guys were plumbers. Funny, 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 funny. That is not the kind of plumber I'd want to be. Thank you, James. That's a little reference. Okay, so, oh yeah, I wanted to do this little thing about Ukraine. Let's see. All right, it says, so I saw this thing that, like, all these people in Ukraine's cabinet or government are resigning, and Zelensky has said there's going to be a big government shakeup. And remember, Zelensky is in a post-term period. His term is up, and he suspended elections. I mean, this guy, he's not a strong man, obviously, but he's. I wonder if the people who are backing him are loyal to him, because actually this Putin quote is fantastic. It's fantastically pertinent to this. It says Kiev's behavior, this is from Putin, Kiev's behavior under these circumstances raised eyebrows. Well, I guess I missed the first part of that, but this is Putin is saying, I think it was about the shakeup. I sometimes get the impression, this is the quote, that those who rule Ukraine are like aliens or foreigners. And my first thought was, or lizards. They don't think. You see, their losses are colossal. I can't even fathom what they will do next. So I think he is probably referring to the absolutely insane incursion into Russian territory, which I pointed out immediately. Well, Russia's not going to defend that with bombs. They're going to pull their guys there to put that down and bomb the crap out of Ukraine, because they're trying to be humane about it, but they don't have to be, you know? And of course, that escalation was foreseeable and therefore not unintended. And then you have Ukraine wanting those fighters, which cannot operate without our involvement. So either it's meant to bring NATO in, to bring us in, or just to sell war equipment, which more and more it seems that the corruption and the geopolitics are just neck and neck for the motivations here. According to Putin, the only option, this is from RT, by the way. Oh my gosh, is quoting RT going to get me arrested as an unwitting foreign agent? Maybe. So our next, Hervoy and Mike and I, Parallel Mike and I, did our first episode of Cognitive Dissidence. It's the second episode together. The first one was the As Yet Unnamed podcast. I'm going to live stream that next week. I'm going home for one day to I want to visit my mother's grave. She's got her gravestone. And, you know, I said all these years she would never move to live with me because she didn't want to live far from the cemetery. So I'm going to try to visit my parents' grave every September, because their anniversary was today. Their anniversary is today. And but I couldn't make it today. So I'm going to go next week. I'm not going to be here on Thursday. I think I'm going to live stream the Cognitive Dissidence episode, and might be up on the podcast feed first. That's rare for us, but we're going to do that. And but Hervoy was talking about how he feels like he is being kind of targeted as an unwitting or witting Russian agent. Sometimes they call him a Nazi, sometimes they call him a commie. Like, they're after him. They want to discredit him, I guess. So he's probably doing something right. But he was kind of telling us about it before it was announced that the U.S. government is cracking down on anything that can be remotely construed as favoring Russia, which I'm guessing means pro-Trump, you know. And they name by name Tenet Media, which I'm not familiar with, but I see that people who I know follow it. Anyway, so back to the Putin quote. According to Putin, the only option left for Kiev is to lower the maximum age of conscription yet again. This would allow them, quote, to recruit children, as the German Nazis did with the Hitler Youth. But this will not solve the problem. The next step is to call up students to bleed the country dry. Once again, it seems that Ukrainians are not their people, meaning that the government, it's a pathocracy. He's I should write him a note. It's the word you're looking for is pathocracy. So apparently there are major disagreements within the government right now anyway. So it's falling apart. And then a politician from Ukraine said on Telegram, as promised, a major government reset can be expected this week. More than 50% of the cabinet minister's staff will be changed. Arakhamia is the guy's name. He adds that new members would be appointed imminently. Yeah. Yeah. So getting back to the Biden stuff on the Russian election interference, Russia seeks to boost Trump in 2024 elections. U.S. intelligence officials say, okay, so I read a bunch of these articles. I'm not going to tell you about it. You've probably come across it yourself. But what I did notice, all the ones I read were in the Wall Street Journal, that they cite no sources whatsoever. They just regurgitate what the government's telling them. They're not even linking to, and they never do. They've got us in a post evidence world as well. They never link to this stuff, but they aren't even linking to the statements made by the government officials. So it's being widely reported. I see absolutely no evidence. When they say unwitting, they're saying that the words people use reveal that they're supporting Putin, and that's enough. And it's just, of course, they're also saying that about China and Iran, I think, too, and China, it's just to mess with our minds. It's not even to influence the election. It's just to make us feel unsecure about the election. So that would encourage, I guess, post-election violence. I don't know what they're after, but to me, that stuff's all a crock because the government just wants to control the elections. They want surveillance. They want censorship. They want to create these foreign enemies so they can control. But you know all that already. So I don't believe any of that. I do believe that the chick in New York on the governor's payroll was actually a Chinese spy. I don't know if you've heard about this. Her name was Sun, I think Linda Sun. And I believe that because you see that Gal Luft indictment that said that somebody was in the Trump administration doing it. That was widely reported to be Woolsey. Biden obviously sold influence to China. That's well reported. Read Peter Schweitzer's books. So it says that she did. Now, this seems much more like what China does. She gave them some Chinese officials false letters to get a visa. She was crafting the messaging about China with regard to Uyghurs and Taiwan. And that in return for this, her husband received millions of dollars in business transactions from China, money that was used to purchase their Long Island home, a condo in Hawaii, luxury cars, including a Ferrari. I mean, money's fungible, so the money in their bank was probably used to buy all that stuff. But yeah, that I believe that China's just willy-nilly trying to mess with us. I don't actually believe that. So anyway, let us wrap with something fun and funny. We need a little lightness today. So this is I'm not going to do it because it's just, I'm not ready for lightness. Today's story, the Georgia thing really depressed me on many levels. I mean, I don't care what factors went into it, but that those guys, for whatever reason, those people were killed. They were special kids. That makes me want to cry. I don't know anything about the woman teacher, but the man was so loved. I can't get my mind around it. And normally it's hard to relate or care about people you don't know about. That's why I don't like these national stories. I don't like to cover this stuff. But I think we're going to have no clip today. And we'll save the fun and funny one for a different day. And I thank you all for coming. And this is Monica Perez, and I'll see you next time.